Hello, everybody, and welcome. Dobrodošli. This is a panel that's called BeoAir, and it's connected to an exhibition that's going to happen at the Studio 106 Gallery here in Los Angeles, a small nonprofit gallery that we're excited to present because air is something that we all share. No matter where we live, we have to breathe. No matter what our nationality is, we have to breathe. No matter who we are and what we believe, we have to breathe. And the pollution is killing us, and we really have to work on thinking about it wherever we are. So we have a group of artists who are looking at Belgrade in Serbia, and the exhibition is going to open on the 26th. It was organized by Ivan Adama, who is our member of the Artside Collective, and we're happy to have her actually in the background holding forth. Deja Cvetkovic, Lina Pozdnjakova, and Masha Lekovic. And with that, I'd just like to welcome everybody again, and we get started. I should also mention who's on the panel, actually, and the fact that Caitlin Bryson will be moderating. Caitlin Bryson is also in the Artside Collective. So we're inviting back Suzanne Paulson, who's a professor at UCLA in atmospheric sciences. And we just love having her in these discussions because she brings to us the facts dealing with the atmosphere and pollution. And our goal is to have art that's based on facts, no matter how poetic it is. And then we have Sanja Copic, who's coming to us from Belgrade, Dusan Todorovic, Marija Sumarac, and Anna Todosijevic. So welcome everybody, and with that, we get started. Caitlin, I guess you get it going, or who's presenting first?
Suzanne is going to present first, so let's kick it off with Suzanne.
Thank you, Suzanne, for again joining us. I know you have a crazy schedule.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure to do this before, and it's certainly my pleasure to do it again. It's very fun and interesting. So I guess I was asked to talk a little bit about air quality in Los Angeles. Air quality is certainly a pretty local phenomena, although there are global components. I'm not an expert on air quality in Belgrade, but I think we have some people here who are. So Los Angeles is famous worldwide for its air quality and hopefully poor air quality. Hopefully it's also famous worldwide, and certainly in many circles it is, for its really incredible progress in cleaning up the air. The air is not clean here yet. But given that population has increased dramatically over the past 60 or so years that we've been trying to address air quality, air pollution, the control programs that we've developed here have been incredibly successful, and most pollutants are down by around 70% compared to what they were at their peak. And this is one example. This is ozone, and in this particular plot, it's days exceeding the ozone standard. The ozone standard, like most air quality standards, has been changing over the years. It's getting tighter and also changing the time frame over which it is averaged as we learn more and more about the health impacts of air pollution and can target better into aspects of the pollution metrics that actually are most impactful for health. But it started out, Los Angeles had very high ozone on pretty much every day of the year. Although actually this green is the maximum ozone concentration. So this is days exceeding the standard. So over 200 originally. There were initial controls in the 70s and 80s that brought it down kind of slowly. There was a really dramatic drop in the 90s. That's the result of reformulating gasoline, something that I was somewhat involved with. And then since then, we've been making sort of slow additional progress, although at this point, we've pretty much picked all the low-hanging fruit and all the fruit at the middle of the tree, and we're kind of just working on the last little bits at the very top of the tree. So it's very hard to make additional improvements, but we're still working on it slowly. Another major cause of air pollution is particles. And particles are really tiny, so they're not visible to the naked eye. And I have so much admiration for the artists who are trying to bring visual representations of air pollution, because air pollution is, you know, kind of just makes the air gray. And so it's a challenging problem, but there are some wonderful creative solutions that are so effective, I think, coming out of work that from artists that I've had some interaction with through this and other venues. So little tiny aerosol particles are much smaller than the width of even very fine human hair. The largest particles that we worry about that get into our respiratory system are about 10 microns, and you can fit several of those across a typical piece of human hair, but most of the particles are actually much smaller than that. What we call fine particles, and then even ultrafine particles, which are quite short-lived but tend to be quite elevated near sources. And these are also particles that are in the same range as another sort of bioparticle that we're all very worried about right now, the coronavirus that causes COVID-19. Is about the same size as a large combustion particle, and can be dealt with actually in similar ways in terms of filtration, and behaves in similar ways in the environment. One of the things that's happened recently is that we've finally gotten cheap sensors that actually have usable information. There have been traditionally cheap sensors on the market, like air pollution cleaning solutions that are really just made by charlatans, but these are actually useful. These sensors are actually useful. They're not perfect, but they're actually useful, and they cost about $200. They get connected up to whatever local internet there is, and then they send data in real time, and you can see them they've only been around for about 3 years, and they're slowly popping up all over the world. There are some countries where there are none, many countries where there are many more. And this is just a random screen grab that I took from the website that collates all the data one day several weeks ago, and it shows high concentrations in the area that we're discussing today. And I was also, though, pleased to see that there are quite a number of sensors in that area. The uptake has been, it's an American company, the uptake has been spotty in different parts of the world. These sensors are not as high quality as the sensors run by government agencies in general, but they are, you can have so much more spatial density and also temporal density. So you can literally see whether the wildfire smoke plume is coming towards your house in some places if there are enough of these sensors. This shows how a little illustration of just how local air pollution can be. This is not random, this is real. And it turns out that this area, there's a lot of wood burning. And so the air quality there is significantly worse than literally just few meters, tens of meters away from that little neighborhood. So it can show us wonderful spatial density, and reveal the spatial variability of air pollution. So air pollution, especially particle pollution, ozone tends to be much more smeared out, but especially particle pollution can vary over very short scales and is very influenced by the local built environment. Some of the work that we've done has been looking at how the plume from a major roadway, major highway spreads throughout an urban area. And the atmosphere also plays a significant role. At night, the atmosphere traps the pollution close to the surface. So the polluted air just kind of creeps along the surface, and we can have a very large area of people who are exposed by pollution from the roadway, whereas in the daytime, it really only impacts a very narrow band very close to the roadway because the atmosphere is so much better at polluting it and mixing it around. We've also done a lot of measurements in more generalized urban areas, and we see hotspots around intersections and also around tall buildings. We've done some modeling about and looking at what kinds of building configurations result in lower concentrations. Rows, which are common in a lot of old cities in Europe, are particularly good at trapping pollution. They're not very conducive to good air quality at street level that pedestrians are being exposed to, and more open space grid pattern, given the same total building volume, results in lower pollutant concentrations. In my group, we've also asked the question, where should you put the bus stop? It turns out that people in many parts of the world, not everywhere, like in Switzerland, they're very efficient, but lots of parts of the world, people who take the bus spend a lot of time waiting for the bus, and concentrations of pollution are very high, and this can be a large part of their daily exposure to air pollution. So if we move the bus stop a little bit further away from the intersection, we can actually reduce their exposures significantly. There are also a lot of options in terms of putting structures around roadways to protect neighbors from pollution. Solid walls are actually very effective. Trees, it turns out, are also help. They actually make things worse at high wind speeds, but pollutant levels are usually low at high wind speeds. So, so they make things better when wind speeds are low, which is when pollutant concentrations are highest. So overall, they're a good thing. Add on. In my group, we're also quite interested in interactions between air pollution and particles and other things released by humans on the climate, and some of that takes place in clouds. So we also have a program looking into the detailed chemistry that's going on in cloud droplets. And we're also very interested in how particles impact lungs and exactly what it is about particles that makes people sick. And so this is one of the things we've been looking at is the particular unique components of wildfire smoke and how that influences chemistry once those particles get into people's lungs. Wildfire smoke was not a big issue in my mind earlier in my career. There have been fires in California forever, but they've become much more intense and larger and longer lasting, and UCLA is regularly influenced by wildfire smoke these days, where it was not, certainly for the first 15 years or so that I was at UCLA. Increased wildfires are a result of our warming climate, as many people are aware. And finally, because particles are particles, we're also involved in COVID-19 research project trying to understand how the particles move through the atmosphere, the virus particles. And we are in the process of equipping volunteers with backpacks that have little sensors in them that will go around, or little collectors in them actually, that will go around and collect and see how much COVID-19 virus they're being exposed to as they go around their daily activities. So thank you very much. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Suzanne. There's so much in there that I've heard a bit from you before, but now there's even more things that I'm thinking about, especially in relation to this. So excited for the conversation that we'll have afterwards.
I'm excited about those backpacks.
I still think we should equip some Artside collective members.
We're your volunteers, Suzanne. The Artside Collective, we're putting them on.
We may call you.
We could do some cool performances with them, I think, also. But
Absolutely.
That would be fascinating. That could be really cool.
We could send some to Belgrade too.
All right, next we're going to have Marija and Anna presenting together. And I'll just read quick bios just to introduce you two. So Anna is an architect and researcher focusing on the mutual connections and relationships between architecture, living systems, and technology. Her research follows a biological approach and reconsiders the way we influence and build our environment. Marija is a sound designer, trombonist, composer, trombonist, composer, and sound artist. She expresses herself through sound and various media, but most active in the field of music. So welcome, Marija and Anna, and very much looking forward to your presentation together.
Thank you, Caitlin. Hi, I'm Anna. I'm an architect and one of the authors of Aerosonar installation, together with Marija, sound designer, she's here with us, and Anna Anastasov, sound designer, with the support of Bojan Kenik, biologist, and Alexander Kilibarda, software developer. Aerosonar will be available on gallery website, so feel free to check it out. Give us feedback if you find it interesting. Aerosonar is a sound installation that translates Belgrade air pollution data into sound and melody. The installation collects current publicly available air pollution data and uses the method of data sonification to create a melody of air pollution. Each of 4 parameters we chose, together with temperature that affects all of them, is given a sound, and modification of sound and complete melody depends on the value of parameter at the present time. And it can actually change a lot during the period of just one day. Here you can see an example of tracking data and melody modification for the period of 36 hours. A live stream will also be available during the whole exhibition, where you can listen to Belgrade air pollution in real time. For now, I'm just gonna play a short preview. So, like I said, feel free to check it out. And Aerosonar is originally a spatial installation, which means that the visitor can change the melody by walking through the space of installation. Remote sensors are placed in each of these spheres that represents one parameter, and sensors detects user behavior and train the melody according to it. And this represents a human impact on air pollution. So visitors could choose how much they want to change the melody, but they couldn't choose not to change it. Just like we cannot choose not to have an impact on our environment. So when we first met, we had similar interests. Some of them were data sonification, or experiencing space through other parameters that are not touchable or visible, such as sound. But air pollution was something that brought us together in the first place. That was something that we couldn't ignore. Everybody was talking about it and checking air quality on their phones. And situation was pretty much the same in many cities in Serbia. One of them is Smederevo, where Marija is from.
Thank you, Anna. So my personal experience that drew me to deal with this topic in more detail is the fact that I live in a city with a high concentration of air pollution. As Anna mentioned, the city in question is Smederevo, which is located only about 50 kilometers from Belgrade. And the reason for high air pollution is the Hestel Serbia, also known as the IGBIS group, Serbia Iron and Steel. Since 2016, this steel manufacturer has been working at full capacity, and doesn't have enough air purifiers, which causes red dust that covers the whole area around Hestel, which is actually a huge part of the city. And you can see those pictures on the slide. For example, if you go in the evening to take a walk or something like that, you will find that it's very difficult to breathe, especially in the winter. The problem is that we as citizens are not fully aware of how much this affects our health and how much the air is actually polluted. So in my personal opinion, there is no doubt that that the fact that Smederevo is near Belgrade it also affects air quality in Belgrade. You will ask, why sound? When we started thinking about how we want to present air pollution data, we knew that we didn't want to present as numbers and colors and to make another air visual application. So we choose sound. The reason for that is the listening is different kind of experience. Sound is something which is everywhere around us, and we experience it consciously, subconsciously, emotionally, and we can actually feel sound through vibrations. So that is why we wanted visitors to experience air pollution through a spatial sound installation and make them aware of how important this topic is. The method that we use in this installation is sonification of data, and it represents their transformation into audio content. What we actually do, we connect each parameter that affects air pollution with a certain sound, according to which it will be transformed using Sonic Pi. Sonic Pi is an open source programming environment. It is based on Ruby programming language and Supercollider, and it is easy to use. And data of parameters of air pollution that we are taken from the measure station in the center of Belgrade in real time. So in the slide you will see two pictures. The bigger one is some programming environment of Sonic Pi, and the smaller one is actually our data that we use, and they are taken from measuring station. And we are actually come to end. We were working on this project for almost 7 months, and we were physically realizing this project during July and August 2020. The work premiered at exhibition in the Cultural Center magazine in Belgrade in September 2020. While at the same time, it was virtually presented at the exhibition both ways at ESOP Trieste and Ars Electronica Linz. We realized this installation with the help of Center for the Promotion of Science in Serbia and European Artificial Intelligence Fund. That would be all. Thank you.
Wow. That's really incredible to see. Thank you so much. I'm especially interested. I wish we could see it in person, but just how the body affects the sound in the space. I think I really like what you were saying about that, and I think that that's actually a really huge component. So we can sense our physical presence within that and how we're impacting not only the sound but the air quality as a result. Thank you so much. All right. Up next, we have Dusan. And Dusan is an assistant professor at the University of Belgrade, Faculty of Mechanical Engineering, Department of Process Engineering and Environmental, with research experience in the field of combustion, thermal conversion, characterization, and ash related properties of biomass, air pollution from stationary sources, environmental control, and air dispersion modeling. As a consultant for the Serbian Ministry of Environmental Protection, he has worked on several strategic projects and documents related to air protection and climate change. Very important work. Welcome, Dusan. And when you're ready, you can go ahead and start your video.
We're not hearing anything from Dusan. Okay, good idea.
Sanja, are you ready?
Yep, I can jump in.
Okay.
Not ready ever, but thanks.
Well, I will go ahead and introduce you then. So Sanja is an artist exploring identity, lists, memories, fantasies, dreams, and the positions of the full-time employed artist in contemporary society by using videos, performance, and installation. She's interested in communication, language, philanthropy, and the beauty of sad and ugly things. Welcome.
Everyone, thank you, Caitlin, and thank you for inviting me here. I'm going to share my presentation now, and it's going to be slightly different from what you just saw, I believe. So, okay, so I'm going to have to give you a bit of a background on me. So I am an artist, but I am also a fully employed person working in a lovely company in marketing. And these two identities of mine, so one of a trained artist and the other of a corporate identity, and this tension between them is something that largely forms my work. And it has also influenced some of the things that you're going to see later in the work. So here on the right, you can see just an example of that and how I deal with that with all of my very introspective work. This is a painting, it's a self-portrait I did on Venetian blinds that kind of like disappears when it's opened. And as I was painting this, I was enjoying it immensely. And so I thought to myself for like good 4 seconds, like, oh, maybe I should have been an artist. And the irony of me actually painting a work for my solo show and thinking that thought, it just goes on to show just how different and conflicted these two identities are. On the left, there's another work of all of my best drawings that I managed to lose that also speaks volumes about how I deal with my art. Another thing that is important for the rest of the story is the formats. What I usually work in is either a video or performance. And when I do videos, it's usually building on contemporary formats that I find fascinating, such as YouTube vlogs that have this very raw and very like artificial but direct connection to the viewer. And also, this is a recent work I did at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Belgrade. I wrote and performed a full stand-up comedy set. So basically, we all know this language of stand-up comedy, and I wanted to use it to say something else and something different. So my work is very introspective in a way, and also very focused on contemporary means of communication. That brings us to this work. So when Ivana invited me to participate in this exhibition, I first thought of a piece of news from December 2020 that you can see here on the right about the fact or the news that the Environmental Protection Agency in Serbia has changed the criteria for assessing air quality, thus making air that was previously considered polluted now deemed as totally acceptable. So this kind of tampering with data as a way to fix problems that are much larger than that reminded me of another great story from the past of Serbia. In 2013, we had a huge scandal when news broke out that aflatoxins levels in dairy in Serbia were way over the limit. So basically that's a type of mold that is carcinogenic and is very bad for your health, obviously. And so what Serbia did was to just raise the levels of the allowed amount of that toxin in dairy products in Serbia, thus solving the problem in one easy swoop. So that kind of
absurdity was something that really struck me as like very particular for Serbia and for where we live and the type of country, but also reminded me of some of the ways I deal with problems and how I try to kind of fix things, but not really fixing them. There's another blatant example of that from last year, a very sad one, where we had this statistically impossible month of perfect number of COVID-related deaths leading up to the elections in Serbia. That line here, as you can see, looks just amazing and practically impossible. Those things just really kind of inspired me to think about addressing air pollution by embracing this absurdity and kind of trying to react to it with humor in a way, because I believe it can reach many more people than just data. But these charts and these memories that I have are so viral. They really stick with you and they like leave a mark. So that's something that I wanted to put to use in this work. That brings me to my work that you're going to be able to see on Friday. So I basically recorded a series of TikTok videos because TikTok is a very powerful new medium that kind of has a new language, especially used by Generation Z, which I think is instrumental in solving this problem of air pollution. So I kind of wanted to use all of this anger and all of these terrible, terrible data points and transform them into something that is easily communicable on this platform. So I'm going to show you this one particular work here, and then spend a minute talking about why this one is really funny, but also really, really terrible. 1 second. So I hope that wasn't too loud, but I'm sure it was. So the first video that you saw was basically a reaction to the news that a Chinese company, so as you may know, China has vowed to become carbon neutral by 2060 and is doing so by basically exporting all the dirty industries outside of China into poorer countries like Serbia. So a Chinese tire company wants to build a factory in Serbia, of course, gets gifted very fertile land in Serbia and next to a city that is already being an environmental disaster. And all of this is taking place only 2 kilometers away from a beautiful nature reserve that is supposedly protected. And all of this takes place without a study done to assess the impact of the environmental impact of this project on the surrounding areas. So I think I've already spoken too long, but I just want to say that what I try to do here is to try to bring the environmental discussion into a more of a mundane daily kind of discourse. Because it is something that is common ground for all of us. It should be as normal to discuss this as it is to discuss the economy or sports or whatever else. It's not a different universe out there. It's not just for tree-hugging hippies. It's not just for scientists. It's not just for activists who are focused on this area. It is for everyone of us. And I think that this type of medium is something that is a way that I can also contribute to this important fight in my own way. So thanks for your attention. I hope you like the work.
Thank you, Sanja. Can we see another one of your videos? Is it possible?
Sure. Let me just share it again. There's a nice one that I would like to also share. Maybe this one. Can you hear the sound? Did you hear the sound when I was just playing them? Okay. So this one, this is also a great myth that I tried to address in this one.
Put your head on my shoulder.
So these videos really like hook onto existing TikTok trends and use trending sounds and all of the like ways that young people communicate, and tries to like address this issue in a very, you know, a new way. Let's just put it that way. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, I think it's very effective. I love that. I think using that language is super important, and also in terms of using comedy and performance, like I firmly believe that stand-up comedy and really good comedy is like one of the highest forms of art, and especially like, you know, using that rhetoric and this sort of satire to really kind of get people laughing about a common issue in a, you know, that's also driving a lot of information and knowledge through is really powerful.
Yeah, thanks. That was the idea. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to see more. All right, Dusan, I saw you pop up there. Are you ready?
Yes. Hello. Sorry for last time because I have some net interruption here at my office. So I will try now to share my screen and to start my presentation.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, first of all, I would like to thank the organizers of the panel for supporting such an important topic, and to express my satisfaction that I will have the opportunity to share with you my results and views related to air pollution, considering that this is an artistic scientific panel. I tried to make my presentation have minimal text and to be colorful as possible. Air pollution in Serbia is not new, but what is new is that we are finally talking about pollution and the problems that can occur and which will de facto occur in the conditions of seasonal, episodically, and constantly poor air quality. Namely, some parts of Serbia, you can see here some not so nice pictures of Serbia, are exposed to high level of pollution only during the winter months, during the heating seasons, some due to the unfavorable weather conditions, and some such as industrial centers constantly all year round. Air quality in general in Western Balkan countries is among the worst in whole Europe. According to figures from the WHO, the Southeast Europe region is losing the equivalent of 19% of its GDP to costs associated with premature deaths from air pollution. In Serbia, for example, health costs associated with air pollution, it's total about 33.5% of GDP. It is very important to mention that Serbia has the largest electricity system in the region, with about 70% of electricity generated from domestic lignite. By far the largest coal plant in the Western Balkan is located just 40 kilometers from the Serbian capital, Belgrade. The plant named Nikola Tesla 8 that you can see here has 6 units with a total capacity of something about 1.7 gigawatts. Second biggest is the Nikola Tesla B plant with 2 units which have 1.2 gigawatts. In order to define national reduction commitments in line with the so-called National Emission Ceiling Directive provisions, with the preparation for the negotiation on Chapter 27 in the process of the EU accession, and supported and founded by the Environmental Accession Project, ENVAP, Republic Serbia has started to use GAINS model. Just few words about this gains model that we have used for our calculation that we have that we are going to present in this presentation. Here we can see the interactive concept of range optimization of the range model. The range model is an air pollution emission and impact model that helps in analysis of policies, implication of the controlling emissions of major air pollution, so as SO2, NOx, VOCs, PMs, and ammonia, at the national and, of course, at the international scales. Of course, I'm not going here in detail with this concept, but here this red border shows what we have used from this model. It's and let's say the output from our calculations was the emissions. We don't go further in cost or atmospheric dispersion, because now it's under the preparation the air quality strategy of the Republic of Serbia that will give answer on these other topics and other questions. When we are here and we are speaking about the modeling, I have to mention the NIAM group, the National Integrated Assessment Modeling, of which I am a member. Here you can find the link of this group. And what is NIAM? NIAM is a network affiliated to the UNECE Air Convention that aims to bring together integrated assessment modelers from different countries investigating strategies to reduce air pollution and its impacts. We want to share experience on the technical aspects of modeling, on the tools and data we use, and exchanging information about the analysis of the national measures and policies. Moreover, NIAM aims at building cooperation between the scientific community and policy makers. The group brings together as well various organizations all over the world. Even the most of the organizations are from Europe. We have some members from Canada, and I'm not sure, but as well from USA. When we're talking about the activity data or the data that are a need for running the model and to get the calculations, you can see here just the scratch and just the graphical explanation how we organize data and what is the sources of data that we have to use in our calculations. So activity data for calculation of Serbia emissions have been provided from SEPA, it's the Serbian Environmental Protection Agency, then Statistic Office. Of course, the data are approved by appropriate ministry, Ministry of Energy and Mining, Ministry of Agriculture, and so on. As well, we have for future period, actually for the forecasting emissions, we have used some results from some other projects, for example, from climate change strategy of the Republic of Serbia. We have used results from the PRIMES model that dealing with energy, Capri data from Capri model, which dealing with agriculture. As well, we are taking the information from the appropriate strategic documents and other relevant information. Of course, some other projects were very useful for our research and for the data that we have need to achieve and to collect, to start to calculations and to get the results. The following slides bring the results of the calculations of air emissions of the most important polluters from the relevant sectors. Here you can see these black lines, the very high black lines. It's for example, this is the emissions of sulfur dioxide. And these black lines represent the emissions which is coming directly from the thermal energy plants. So actually the power and heating plants. Generally, emissions from coal power plants make an important contribution to poor air quality. Each year, one large coal power plant emits thousands of tons of hazardous air pollutants, including the heavy metals. Pollutants such as sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides react in the atmosphere to form ozone and secondary particulate matter, which are of the greatest concern of health. Most of the plants burn local lignite that comes from the mines in the vicinity of the thermal power plants. This is the case in Serbia as well. We have two basins with the coal. One is the Kolubara and another one is the Kostolac. One is in the, let's say, the central Serbia, and another one is the eastern Serbia near to Romanian border. So clusters of coal mines and thermal power plants represent some of the largest industrial centers in these countries and shape the social and economical structure of the entire region. The majority of the power plants, 60% of units are more than 35 years old. So we are talking here about old technology, and should be retrofitted, updated with the new technology to improve efficiency or simply shut down. Of course, when I mentioned the social picture about this around these plants and around this industry, it's not so easy to shut down this kind of industry and this kind of plants. Sulfur dioxide emissions will be reduced, for example, here from about 3,000 milligrams per cubic meter for when we're talking about thermal power plants to 130 milligrams. And when we're talking about the other pollutants that we will see it on the next slides, it will as well, we are expecting as well the high percentage of the reduction. Of course, this have to be done in accordance with the national and in accordance with the EU legislation. For example, here I will generally continue to speaking about some effects of air pollution from these sources. Here you can see the nitrogen emissions from the key sectors. So just to be clear, we are not now talking about the air quality, we are talking about the components and polluters and their amounts, which is coming from the sources from appropriate sectors that are given here in the upper right corner. So again, the black bars represent the emissions from power and heating plants, and as we can see here with the nitrogen oxides, is a little bit different situation because as well the traffic gives a great share of nitrogen oxides, and we are again expecting with the implementation of appropriate measures in thermal power plants and heating plants, we are expecting the very a steep drop of these emissions. Generally, when we're talking about as well about the health costs of the fuels such as lignite and coal, produced some of the highest external costs amongst all energy forms. They are the most expensive energy forms in terms of resulting premature deaths. This can be shown by comparing the health costs of lignite or coal power generation per terawatt hours produced per number of premature deaths compared with other forms of energy where the coal is large in that sense. Based on some studies, for example, estimated health costs from existing coal power plants to the European population are between 1.4 to 4, it's rough estimation definitely, so it goes from 1.4 to approximately 4 billion euros. It's just the emissions from Serbia which can affect the European population. Of course, in terms of the health damage, I think the professor at the beginning mentioned that the fine particles, the PM.5, is most of concern for health protection, given that these tiny particles can enter the bloodstream via lungs. Biomass burning aerosols containing large amount of gas and particles such as fine particle matter, PM1, PM2.5, PM10, black carbon, nitrogen oxides, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, lead, mercury, PAH, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. Why I mention here the biomass burning, because here you can see again the black bars, which represents the emissions from the power and heating plants. But here you can see these, let's say, green bars, that is the emissions from residential combustion, and this is the combustion of biomass and combustion again of some other solid fuel. But generally speaking, in Serbia, it will be the biomass in the majority of this share. Of course, it's not only the thermal power plants and the residential combustion. Of course, for all these pollutants, we have the emissions from industrial combustion, emissions from traffic, and so on. But of course, we don't have time here to go in details for each pollutant and for each sector. It's very important here to mention, beside these PMs, that residential wood combustion, again here represented with these green bars, particularly in cold regions and particularly in heating seasons, can contribute to a considerable amount of atmospheric organic aerosols, both through primary emissions and significant secondary aerosols formation. So here you can see when we're talking about the VOC, the volatile organic compounds, beside the power and energy plants, which is now at the bottom, because the difference of the process now is giving the another majority sources. Now we can see the residential combustion, and some other sectors here are the most have the most emissions of this pollutant. When we're talking the ammonia and emissions of ammonia, the agriculture sector is responsible for over than 90 emissions across the whole Europe. It's not situation only the Serbia. So the ammonia contributes to acid deposition, to eutrophication, then which in turn can lead to the potential changes occurring to soil and water quality. Of course, a number of policies have been implemented within Europe that either directly or indirectly act to reduce emissions of ammonia. Emissions trends have mostly been downward since peak in late 80s and early 90s, but have now flattened. As the climate warms, volatilization of ammonia emissions will lead to further rise in ammonia concentrations by applying appropriate measures, of course, primarily in the agriculture sector. Also, in case of Serbia, has the opportunity to reduce the ammonia emissions. Generally speaking, in all over the Europe, the reduction of ammonia it's not so easy, and reduction potentials are not so big due the just fact that the majority of these emissions come from agriculture sector. When we present these results here, we can see the proposed national emission reduction commitments. Actually, we can see the numbers, and comparing the 2020 and comparing 2005. So the emissions in 2005, you can see here for each of pollutants, we follow the emissions in the resolution on 5 years, from 2005 to 2030. So it was the demand of this EU directive to give these predictions of the reduction. So if we comparing or looking to 2005 in period 2020 to 2029 and 2030. So in 2030 we can expect these reductions of these pollutants. So of course the most potential is for sulfur dioxide, since as I mentioned, the Serbian thermal power plants working without FGDs, it's the fuel gas desulfurization systems. So we are expecting the installation of these systems for gas treatment in the next 10 years. Of course, on the second place is nitrogen oxides. It's the same situation. So the installation of appropriate measures and appropriate systems will be done in the future period. This is the situation as well with the PM 2.5, but not so high reduction, since we saw that PM 2.5 it's not coming only from the thermal power plants and the energy sector. It comes from some other sectors, and we have here the expected reductions for volatile organic compounds, not non-metal volatile organic compounds, and ammonia. Of course, these numbers are, let's say, realistic or absolute maximums, and we will see what would be the situation in that 2030. I'm optimistic. Of course, these numbers strictly depend on the financial and technical circumstances, and the plans that brings to these numbers are set, let's say, before this COVID situation and COVID pandemic impact. So this is one, I think, this could be, and nobody knows, but this could be one of the obstacles in the next period. And the last part of my presentation and the last slides will be concerning the air dispersion modeling. Of course, in order to see the effects of the applied measures on the reduction of the emissions on air quality for the largest emitter of sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, and particle matters, and we are now, of course, talking about the thermal power plants. The modeling of atmospheric dispersion was performed. The concentration of air pollution at a given place is a function of the number of variables, including the emission rate, the distance of the receptor from the source, the atmospheric conditions, atmospheric air quality dispersion models are usually used to estimate just how much reduction has occurred during the transport of pollutant from an industrial sources or from the source of pollutants, and consequently to project the pollution concentrations at ground level. So with this modeling, we are trying now to use these measures, to use these new numbers after the implementation measures, and try to give the estimation of the air quality after the implementation of these measures, or maybe better it's better to see the impact of these measures on contribution or special or concrete sources. In this case, this is the thermal power plants, the largest emitters in Serbia that we have already mentioned. Of course, what should be just a couple of sentences of what is the dispersion modeling? It is simply is a mathematical simulation of emissions as they are transported throughout the atmosphere, and it replicates the atmospheric condition, which includes wind speed, wind direction, temperature, mixing high, and provide an estimated of the concentration of pollutants as they travel away from the emission source. The dispersion models can be used to determine whether a new source will adversely impact an area or predict whether the control of an individual sources will have beneficial effects. What is the situation here? But generally, it is the purpose of this kind of modeling. And dispersion models are used when a prediction of the ambient concentrations is necessary, such as in new source review or evaluating emission reduction plans. So it's not only if you implement the measures on existing plant, it's of course if you're building the new plant and to see the appropriate impact of that the standard model, United States Environmental Protection Agency air mode, is used in our research, which is based on the Gaussian model. Our model includes a wide range of possibilities for modeling the effects of the pollutants on the air pollution. So here you can see the two domains that we have in our modeling. So the left part is the one set of power plants, and at B domain is the second group of thermal power plants. So on upper graphs you can see the current situations, and down there you can see the situation after the implementation of measures. So this is the results for SO2, results for nitrogen oxides, as well the current and future situation, and results for PM10 as well for both domains A and B, and for current situation and after the implementation of measures. So in order to have a clear picture of air quality before and after the implementation of emission reduction measures, we have analyzed the obtained results through EU air quality index. The European Air Quality Index, of course, as all other quality index, allows users to understand more about air quality, whether they live, work, or travel. From obtained results here, you can see in this table, it can be clearly seen that after the application of the measures, the air will be within the category here. So this is the before implementation for domain A and for domain B, and this is the after the implementation measures for domain A and for the domain B. So after the implementation of measures, the air will be within the category that implies the best quality class. So it's the good and fair one. So if you look here, the legend of definition of these levels or all of these categories, you can see now in future the air quality will be satisfactory, which is of course the current situation. It's not so that.
Dusan, we have to move on to the Q&A now.
I'm just on my last slide, so it's just on time. So instead of conclusion, that is certainly being imposed, and that is that Serbia has a huge problem with air quality, and that is the last moment has to come to do something serious. Here I send you a, let's say, set picture of what of the largest classroom at our faculty looked like today, which is unfortunately a consequence of another global problem, which is of course COVID-19. So here you can see here my contact, as well the contact of my colleague who worked with me on this research and on these results. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have some questions from the audience that I'm going to relay first to get the conversation started a little bit. One of the first ones from Rok, I think is a question to Anna and Sanja. He says, I'm really curious about the difference of sound with regard to pollution. So can you talk a little bit about maybe how you selected the sounds and what their sort of correlation was to the data that you were showing us?
Maria, this is a question for you because it's sound, but okay.
Oh, okay, so can you repeat again?
Yes.
Question.
Okay, so what is, Rock says, I'm really curious about the difference of sound with regard to the pollution, which I'm surmising is how did you select the sounds that you were using, referring to the data that you were?
Okay, so we actually, what we do, we select sounds with a frequency range, and if we talk about PM 2.5, it will be the highest sounds, and if we talk about temperature, it will be the lower sounds. And we have some some echoes, some distortions on that sounds, and that's why we make a change.
And we also didn't want to make some disturbing sounds. That wasn't our intention. We actually wanted to create a more personal relationship with air pollution. So it wasn't supposed to be an alarm. It should be some kind of pleasant sound, because that experience was very important for us.
I have a question.
Thank you, Rock.
Just following up that, when a person is viewing the artwork, can we look at or understand that information for ourselves? Like if we're in the gallery, would you be able to like know which frequencies pertain to which? Or I'm sorry, I haven't seen the app yet, but is that how it works with the app? So that then you can also, like as the individual or as the participant, you're kind of being able to translate the sounds and the variations yourself? Does that make sense?
Yes, but the melody, the complete melody was important. The combination of those sounds was something that should make an atmosphere of whole pollution. Of course, it's just 4 parameters, but Maria and Anna were working on sound, and like I said, it wasn't supposed to be some disturbing, but we also didn't want to like mark the spheres, like which parameter is which. We wanted to leave that to the audience, because we wanted to, like I said, to experience some like some conversation with air pollution, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, there's another question from Katerina, and I'll direct this question at Suzanne. She asks, which death is caused by air pollution?
Like, how would you know? How would you know that it was caused by air pollution, I think is what she's trying to ask.
Thank you. It's a really interesting question, and it's been rare. It's not unheard of, but it's fairly rare throughout history that the doctor or the coroner will put on the certificate of death air pollution as the cause of death. So what epidemiologists do is they look at the relationship between deaths from many different causes, including all causes together, and air pollution. And what they see pretty uniformly is, depending on the concentration of the pollution, small increases in an astonishing array of deaths. The largest numbers are actually associated with, surprisingly, cardiovascular outcomes, so higher rates of heart attacks and strokes. There are there are increases in cancer and respiratory mortality due to respiratory ailments, but those are not the largest numbers in terms of lives lost. And then in addition, there are impacts on all kinds of things that are not, that impact people's ability to go about their daily lives, but don't necessarily result in death, like there are higher incidences of low birth weight babies and premature births and developmental delays. There seem to be associations with higher incidences even of things like autism, certainly the ability to recover from other diseases, somewhat higher incidences of obesity, all kinds of things. And it's kind of interesting how pervasive it is, and probably the leading theory for why it sort of creates this kind of pervasive degradation to health in many different ways is that it increases oxidative stress. It's certainly not super well established, but that's a theory that would account for a lot, but not all of the adverse health outcomes, is that there's increased oxidative stress as a result of air pollution.
Well, there's also the direct relationship between the numbers of COVID infections to areas that have been very polluted. And I'm just curious about that relationship, because my own interest in dust and pollution, a lot of bacteria and viruses can actually be transported with pollution and dust. Can you speak about that?
Sure, yeah, unless Dusan wants to take it. But yes, so the COVID studies are indicating that there are higher death rates in areas where there's more air pollution. But those studies are early, and so COVID death rates are higher in poorer communities, and poorer communities tend to also be exposed to higher levels of pollution for a number of reasons that include historical reasons, include environmental justice reasons. More polluting industries tend to be located in poorer communities, and other reasons as well, just happenstance of geography, etc. So those do need to be carefully deconvoluted, but certainly we expect that the COVID-19 viruses will be attached to ambient pollution particles. And so that will impact how they move around in the environment, depending on how much pollution is there. And they certainly are incorporated into the ambient particulate pollution. They probably, we don't know that much about how long they're viable as they're airborne, but they won't be viable, for anywhere near as long as the particles remain suspended in the air. The typical PM 2.5 particle stays in the air, stays airborne for about a week before it's removed. So probably the bioaerosols are not going to be, viable, but they'll still be there.
So there goes the idea of border closing to prevent the virus, and it just doesn't work. You can just have the winds bring them over anywhere, right?
Well, I didn't quite get your whole question, but the wind is definitely your friend. I mean, being outside in a windy area and being near someone who has COVID-19, it's a much better situation than being inside or somewhere where there is very little wind. So yeah, dilution is always a good thing when it comes to pollution, whether it's biological or chemical or whatever.
All right, we have one more audience question. So Irina asks, and maybe this is another question for Suzanne or Dusan. I'd like to ask the non-artist participants, how do you use these findings further? Do you work with public policymakers on raising awareness or educating a wider audience?
If I understand well, The question is how we are going to use these results in future, and is it going to affect the right persons? Yes, definitely. These results and this calculation that we have done are done in the close cooperation with the Ministry of Environmental Protection of the Republic of Serbia and the Serbian Environmental Protection Agency. So this is of course, these numbers are in line of the states of the stakeholders and electrical industry. So this is not only the, let's say, some imaginary scenario. So this is the real numbers, and this is the reductions that we are expecting in the future. So I think that these numbers, actually, I hope, and I would like to see these numbers in 10 years or in 5 years, just to see what is the progress. But definitely, this is something that is live, and this is not only the numbers on the paper. And I would like to add the situation in Belgrade with wind. So, you know, the only friend of the citizen of Belgrade is Kosovo. The Kosovo is the local wind in Belgrade. So when we get the Kosovo, it's cold. We are freezing, but we know that we have the, let's say, the good air in that moment. So yeah.
In terms of that, like with the way that, you know, as what Suzanne just said, which I've heard also echoed in a lot of kind of environmental talk about contamination, is the pollution, or the solution to pollution is dilution. But how does that actually work? You know, if air is moving through and moving all that pollution out, like still where it's going somewhere, correct? I mean, it's just dissolving and mixing in with other things, or is it rising? You know, what is it actually happening chemically, and does that contamination or pollution actually go away?
I think that maybe you don't understand it in right matter, Susan. So it's just the dilution is just helping, but the dilution is not the measure. It's not. It doesn't solve the problem. So the right thing, or the only thing that solves the problem, is the reduction of emissions. So if you don't emit, you don't have the pollution. And if you reduce your emissions, you will reduce or you will increase the air quality. So that's the idea. The dilution and winds and so on is just something that help us and to, let's say, to spread and to disperse the pollution on wide area, not to keep it on the place near to the sources or the one place or so on. So it's in that matter it helps, but generally what comes out, it should be somewhere in atmosphere, in somewhere in the space. So it's not idea. The general idea is to reduce the emitting.
So if I could just add to that, I think that so as Dusan said, dilution does solve some problems, like, you know, the health impacts are much better if things get diluted more quickly. But most pollutants, well, it really depends on the pollutant. Some pollutants stay in the atmosphere for 100 years or longer, and they just build up and build up and build up. And so those become global air pollution problems. Examples of that include carbon dioxide and also chlorofluorocarbons, which destroy our ozone layer. Other things are more short-lived and they get removed from the atmosphere. It's probably hard to think of an example of a pollutant that has absolutely no impacts once it's diluted. But certainly some of the impacts are much smaller.
I have a question for Sanja. Am I sounding an echo here. Sorry about that. I actually really appreciate your approach with TikTok, and because it reaches a much wider audience. And I'm curious on feedback. Are you getting feedback from people? Are you getting a lot of hits? Give us what happens with the audience and how do you interact with them?
Well, I still cannot give you an answer to that question because it's still, I have just only made the TikToks live because I was kind of waiting for the exhibition and this panel as well, because I made those videos specifically for this exhibition. They weren't an old work. So I don't know yet. I'm really hoping that people will interact. I'm really, with all my works that are using a contemporary medium like that, I really hope that people use them and see them as if they really belong there and not as like, oh, this artist is doing something on TikTok, but that somebody would like come across it and say, oh, what a great thing. I'm going to share this with my friends. So that's always I'm always aiming for that kind of believability of the work in order to kind of really spread the message.
And speaking of spreading the message, there's going to be people who will actually go to Studio 16. So are you doing some live streaming? What is the way that all of us can see the physical installations? That's going to all of you. Maybe Caitlin, you know, I know Ivana can't talk while she is in the background, so maybe you can answer.
I'll actually leave that up to the artists. I'm not sure. So how is that working? I was aware that the website is being made live and all the works are viewable in the gallery website starting on Friday. But can you go actually in person?
I'm going to be really brief because my work is kind of specific in that way. So it's going to be a video compilation on the website on Friday. But other than that, you can just find me on TikTok and follow new videos there. I really hope to continue to do this type of work.
I like that. Find me on TikTok.
What's more appropriate than that?
Okay, like we mentioned, there will be a live stream. That's like a main part of our work because we cannot, unfortunately, present it in the original shape, like a spatial installation. There will be a video where you can see the spatial component from last exhibition, but the main part will be a live stream of air pollution in real time.
The video is actually a walkthrough, so short preview of that.
And I really appreciate that you're all based in Serbia, but you can exhibit in Los Angeles. So our world is changing, and that's the silver lining of this pandemic. Do you have any comments on how things are shifting? And this is to everybody, I'm asking. How is even scientific research and collaboration shifting? It's an interesting time for that. To the panel.
Okay, from my point of view, I'm really, let's say, sad at the university. I don't see the students as much as I have had a conversation with them and teaching them in previous period and previous years. So now it's everything is online, and now I have tried all the time to through my career that the students are not the numbers for me. It's the persons, the names. Now unfortunately they became the numbers, and that is really sad. I think that connection and that time that we are spending with students and students with us as teachers are the really something that is needed at the university level. But if we are talking about the scientific work and so on and the cooperation, everything it's let's say, on a really low level, because the traveling, because the meetings and the cooperation with the universities from other countries. So it's really it's affecting a lot already.
I think all of that is true, but the one bright spot is this sort of event, and also in a way, scientific meetings, I think are, I've been thinking maybe we could have them in person every other year instead of every year, because there are some significant advantages to having them online. We can actually see much more of the, many more of the presentations than you can in person, interestingly. So, and we get, you know, much larger audiences for events like this than we would otherwise. So I think there are some silver linings. They're just silver linings in a very dark cloud, but still.
For
Yeah,
instance, this would not have the exposure, right? If we weren't in this situation, this wide exposure, we would have a small gallery in LA with a few local people checking it out and some documentation. So to have this discussion actually is helpful. Sorry, Sanja, you were going to say something.
No, I was going to kind of reiterate what you just said. So I'm really grateful at this opportunity. And this time last year, I was actually at UCLA visiting. And so if someone told me that a year from now I would be showing something online, albeit in a post-COVID world, I would have been really surprised. So I was kind of the last batch of tourists to see the US before COVID. So now everything seems like a dream. And this, yeah, I'm really grateful at this opportunity.
Yeah, I also agree. I'm not a big fan of online events, but this is really another kind of opportunity for us. So that is something that is certainly a good thing.
I would say even, sorry, but I would just say even for classes, it's very difficult. It's difficult for students, it's difficult for faculty. It is a dark cloud, yes, Suzanne is completely right in that image. But there was a moment in a class that I sat in on where there was 100 students, and at the end, question and answer, a student from deep Siberia started asking these amazing questions. And I just thought, when we could have had this opportunity in the past to talk to people in LA and all over the world and really engage the questions in a deep way, and for us to have access to her way of thinking. So there is something that's happening here that really should be an opportunity, and to rethink education as well, and also the art world, the consumer art world, and all in the effort, the global effort to try to save this planet from absolute destruction, from people who are just so unconscious in the behavior to make these regulations or take away regulations, or just create these awful situations for our health, our well-being, and understand that we live in one planet and have to work together. This is a really very interesting window of opportunity, and I mean that deeply. And I just so appreciate to see young people, really young people and teens, wake up and just try to do stuff on TikTok, for instance. A lot of it is dumb, but still, it's this circulation of ideas that's just, to me, very exciting. Okay.
I fully agree, and I want to also say that part of this amazing project that is completely collaborative from a very far distance is to actually not only raise awareness of these critical issues, but also to sort of activate that awareness. And so Studio 106 in LA is partnering with a Belgrade nonprofit organization that's called Shuma Piva. to come together to raise money to plant more trees, specifically evergreen trees, because in Belgrade in the winter, you know, when all of these thermal costs are going up to heat, the deciduous trees that are the main the main ecology in Serbia are losing all their leaves. And so there's this big initiative through the project to donate to Šuma Piva to help plant trees, evergreen trees. So we'll post that link in the chat, and we highly encourage you to participate and donate whatever you can to that. So thank you all for being here and giving so much of your time so generously, and thanks to all that are out there watching. It's great to see all of the audience members. There's quite a few, and also to hear these questions. So don't forget to check out the show on Friday and Šuma Piva, and we'll post all that in the chat again. Thank you.
And at the end, we like putting our hand to the screen. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.